digital wizards out there. Today we're going to be going over how to texture, light, and render our own Blender object. Let's get started. First things first, we want to go to File and Open. That way we can open our soda can file. Now this should have been provided to you on Google Classroom. The next thing I want to go over are these tools over on the left that let you scale, rotate, and just kind of move around. And there are shortcut keys for those guys. That's going to be G, S, and R. G for move, S for scale, R for rotate. And you can use any of those with actual angles. So if you put in the angles of X, Y, or Z, after you click those, then it will go in that specific direction. So for instance, if you press S and then X, it will scale in the X direction. You can also decide how much you want it to scale. So if you press that S and then you press 2, it's going to scale twice as big. Once you have those basics, we're going to go into edit mode. Now you're going to find that in the top left corner right there. It says object mode, but then you can switch it to edit mode, and that's going to allow you to mess with the different components of your model. You might notice that the soda can is not smooth yet. That's okay. We're going to fix that by making sure we're in edit mode. We press A to select everything. That's going to turn your can orange. And then we're going to go to mesh up on the top. So in edit mode, A, go up to mesh, go down to shading, and then we're going to go over to smooth faces. And that's going to smooth our can and make it look a lot better. Now that our can is smoothed, we're going to go in and I'm going to show you, look, you can grab the individual components. Now I'm grabbing these specific faces just because I want to flatten them out from everything else. So I go to mesh again, go to shading, and this time I'm going to go to flat faces so that it flattens out that area. And I can do that with any part of the soda can. So I'm going to do that for the little lip too. And yeah. Now you may notice how easily I'm getting around in my scene, and one of the reasons I'm able to do that is not just because I know how to rotate and things like that, but also because there is this shortcut key. If you use the period key on your number pad on your keyboard, it will zoom into whatever you have selected. So if I have a little face selected, it zooms into that area. If I have a little dot right there, and it zooms into that area, and then it will rotate around that area as well. Now the rotates and the moves, those are all going to be controlled with your middle mouse. That's the little rolly thing in the center of your mouse. And then you're going to use Shift and Control to mess with which one you want. So one will let you pan around, one will let you rotate around, and then, just middle mouse by itself also lets you do something. And if you are ever in doubt, you can always go to the Blender shortcut keys that I have provided. Now, this little trick that I'm doing right here, where it's selecting a whole group of faces, you could do this with edges as well. It's really helpful when we go to UV, and what I'm doing to do that is I'm just clicking Alt when I click on those individual pieces, and it will grab the whole ring or the whole loop of what I need. So now I'm going to use that Alt trick to grab this whole edge loop, and then I'm going to right click so that I can mark the seam. This is how I'm going to start UVing my soda can, and I'm doing this right in the back of my soda can. Right click, mark seam, and again, I want to make sure I'm in edges, and you can find the edges right next to where you found edit mode. There are 3 little boxes, and edges will be the middle box. Now, when we're UVing, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that it kind of opens up our model. So right here, you can see that I don't really need those ones cut, so I'm going to click those specific edges by holding Shift and right click, clear seam. So this is really good to know too, in case you mess up and you grab something you're not supposed to, you can always get rid of that seam and finish it later. I'm also going to make sure that I get rid of this seam here because I don't really need it, because it's already kind of flat on the top of the soda can. So this is how I'm deciding where I should cut, guys, is I'm looking at where it's flat versus where it's not flat. So right there, it's flat. The top of the soda can is flat, but right where it goes and indents in, it is not flat. So I use the Alt trick, mark the seam, And there we go, it's cut right there where it goes in. Perfect. And that will let it unwrap really nicely. So when I'm talking about unwrap, guys, I mean that we can't paint on something that is a 3D object. We can paint on something that is a 2D object, something that is flat. So what we do is we mark these seams and it will have a computer generated flat image for us to paint on. And it makes it a lot easier. So you can see I'm just going around and making sure that I mark those seams anywhere that it's kind of flat coming from the top. Now anywhere that it looks like it's not flat, I want to make sure that I put a little cut so that it has a way to unfold. Now imagine you have like a sleeve or a pant leg. You want to be able to unfold those. You can look at your sleeve or your pant leg right now to just kind of see that usually they actually have seams because you have to be able to sew them together to make the round shape. Otherwise, they just stay flat. So yeah, it's a little tricky at first to figure out where you should cut versus where you shouldn't cut. I definitely recommend not cutting everything. You have to kind of just eyeball it and figure it out. And keep in mind, you can always go back and make more cuts. If you miss something or you look at it and it didn't unfold properly, you can kind of figure out where you need to cut it more. So I'm going to speed up this process just a little bit, just so you can see the cuts a little bit quicker, because it does take a little while to get them all done. So once you've completed all your cuts, you're going to go back up to your different components right next to where edit mode is, and you want to make sure you're in faces. That's going to be the square. That's the third cube, and then you're going to press A to grab everything. Then your shortcut key is going to actually be right up here. You're going to go to edit, UV editing, and you can see it is a mess. This is why we have to make our cuts. So if I press U, I can go to unwrap and it will unwrap my soda can. And that is so much nicer to paint on than the mess that I was looking at before. So one of the things that you may notice is that you can actually grab individual faces and it will show up in your UV editor. Now this is helpful if your can didn't unwrap all the way. If there's a piece that just doesn't look good and you have to figure out where you need to cut it, you can kind of go in and figure out the different areas by just clicking on them, and then you can go in and cut where you need to cut. Once you have everything UV'd, you're going to switch from your UV editor on the top to just layout. And layout is going to get us to some of our options that we need, including over here on the right. We're going to actually switch it to our render view. That's going to be on the top right corner of our scene. And you want to click that final little circle there, final sphere, and you will notice that your soda can goes gray. That's fine. We're going to actually add in the textures that we worked on previously in the year. To get those textures onto our soda can, we want to click that little beach ball icon in our properties and then press new material. And we're going to name our material. I'm going to name mine soda can, and then we're going to go to the base color option. So you'll see that right there. You're going to click the dot for base color and go to image texture. And then you can find yours by going to open and finding your soda texture. Now, if you haven't made a soda texture, which you'll be able to see mine here in a second, I just did a Fanta orange, but I want you guys to make your own. If you haven't done that, go back to your UV editor tab and then go to your UV editor on the left, and you're gonna go up to UV, and then you're gonna export UV layout, which is on the very bottom of that tab. That will allow you to export what the layout looks like, and then you can paint over that and figure out where you want all your pieces to go. So jumping out of Blender, I'm going to Pixlr E, bringing in my UVs, and this is going to allow me to do what I need. So as you can see, one of the things I'm doing is I'm locking my different layers. I'm having a white layer underneath and then my UVs on top, and then I'm gonna bring in an empty layer to paint on, or I'm just gonna bring in my soda can label. So I've already kind of painted this out so you can kind of see how it works, but you're gonna put that in the middle, and there you can see that's where the soda label is supposed to be. And the other pieces are going to be where the silver or the aluminum is going to be, and I can kind of size it and make sure that it works for me. Now when I go to size this, I have these little white lines that I don't want, so I'm just going to use my selection tool and make sure that those go away. So I'm just going to go ahead and select those and then just scale them out a little bit on each side so that it covers all the different pieces of my soda can. Once I have everything colored and covered, I want to export this, but we don't want the lines, so we want to make sure we uncheck the UVs before we export them, because they're really just a map. And I'm going to export this out probably as a PNG, just because it has a better quality than a JPEG does. And then once I have that texture, it's easy enough to attach it to the material that I've already made. So jumping back into Blender, we're going to go back to Layout instead of UV Editor. And once we're in Layout, we can go over back to that little beach ball in the Properties and go to our material. I'm going to exit out the one I already have, go to New. Then make sure I name my material. I'm going to go down to Base Color and click the dot. Go to Image Texture. And then go to open up my soda can texture. And there you have it. I think we're gonna leave the rest for next time, and I really hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, go ahead and give this a like or subscribe, and hopefully you can come back for the next video where we will light this can. Till next time, guys, you digital wizards, keep it magical.